Now her neurologist wanted to have a social worker come to the house and a nurse come to the house. And because my mother was, showing, memory loss and stuff, they suggested that we start spending the night. And for safety reasons.
Right.
But we usually, we're 2 blocks away, and we were trying to start this, but not every night. But when I go to my mother's home, she gets really violent and says, "What the F are you doing here? Get out." And I just tried to tell my mom, we're just here for a night. We're going to stay in the morning and leave quickly. And I don't know.
Not working for her. So is she a nighttime alert and awake and busy person, or is she sleeping at night, but that the neurologist has concerns that she might get up early and make a mistake and go out of the house? Or what are the nighttime concerns, I guess?
Well, I think the concern is that because every once in a while she'll maybe get a fracture in her foot or something, because she'll bump something, because she does have osteoporosis and is not taking any medication for that. But she doesn't usually wander. She might get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and then fall asleep and then maybe wake up again at 4. So it hasn't been too much of a problem. It's just that we're trying to get her used to this, because it will be something in the future.
Yeah, so it sounds like for her, having someone in her home when it's nighttime, even if it's family, feels really odd to her. How is she if you come over during the day?
When we come over during the day, she's fine,
Okay.
So that's why it's not a 24/7 situation right now. It's just, we know that it's around the corner.
Okay, so one of the questions might be if you could stay later into the evening so that she's doing some of the bedtime ritual and routine in the evening, and then you leave sort of when she's getting ready to go to bed or something, rather than leaving or not being present in the earlier evening, so that she's more getting used to you as she's entering her nighttime ritual versus you're staying and you're showing up for sleeping the night, which seems to her like you're trying to take over and do something really weird, as opposed to staying over for a while and then just leaving at bedtime, or maybe even staying on the couch and just sort of hanging out for a while. And if you want to go on to bed, I wanted to finish watching this before I leave. Getting her more used to you staying over longer rather than coming in as though you think she's incompetent, which I suspect is what her greatest concern is. What, you think I'm an idiot and you need to be here at night? I mean, get out. I don't need you babysitting me. And maybe for now, the idea of looking at a passive monitoring system rather than a person monitoring system for night that has an activation system that when she moves around, she's up and moving. And it would also tell you if she went to the bathroom and she didn't come back from the bathroom. You can set it to alert for various things. And so it would allow you to know, ooh, she never got back from the bathroom. It would alert you and say, it's been a half hour and your mom's still in the bathroom. You set it for 15 minutes and it seems like it's longer than that, which then you coming in the house starts to make sense because, she's down on the floor in the bathroom with a broken toe kind of thing. But it's a way to get her more comfortable with your presence without it feeling to her like you're trying to take over, which is what that pushing away business sounds like. She's really uncomfortable with the sense of being smothered.
And I wouldn't want to tell her that in the future we are going to have to stay, because that would get her totally upset.
That would trigger a lot of why are you going to have to stay? I don't understand why you're talking about this like this. I mean, if you're going to do stuff like that, I don't know. I'm not doing this. She sounds like the kind of lady, she's been fairly independent. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Definitely, yeah.
And you live a short distance away, but you do not live in her house. I assume there's a reason for that.
Right. Well, we're 2 blocks away, and she has property that my brother and I rent or live in. So we're just adjusting to her sickness, and we're there. But we're just wondering about the nighttime thing, and trying to get her used to that. So when the time comes, we will be able to just slide in and make it nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm thinking that from what she's indicating, showing up to spend the night is not okay. Maybe staying later into the night,
Okay.
and that kind of thing, and just spending, staying there late enough and say, "Ooh, Mom, do you mind if I just spend the night? I don't really want to walk back over to the house tonight." Makes more sense than the reason I'm here is you're incompetent and we're afraid you'll get hurt, and somebody has to be here for you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I probably messed it all up because,
No, I mean, I don't know that you messed it up. I think you did what you were told, which is you want her to get used to it. But I think the way of getting used to it feels awkward to her and feels fake. And she's calling you on it. And she's accurate. I mean, yeah, she's right. It is awkward and it is uncomfortable. We're planning for a time that isn't quite there yet, but we know it's coming. And she got that you think there's something coming, and she can't quite wrap her head around all that, what that means. And it's like, well, I'm fine. I don't understand why you think you need to be here.
Right.
In the moment, she's fairly accurate. I mean, she would still stub her toe and break it if you were even in the house, because she would still get up and do what she's going to do. And if you start at this point, sleeping so lightly that you're not getting good sleep, that's really not a good habit to develop this early in her dementia, because that means you will be living sleep deprived for quite some time. And that's not a good habit to get into for you as a human being. I think if she breaks her toe, your mom would be, yeah, well, I got up and stubbed my toe. I broke it. So what? So you want to call a lawyer on me or what? I mean, she sounds like the kind of lady that that would be really irritating to her. And you want to avoid irritating her, because then she'll get to a place where she just slams the door. So I guess the other thing a little concerning, Jenny, is the idea of both a nurse and a social worker trying to do something with her.
Yeah, that was because the neurologist had asked, and she is like saying, no way, I'm just doing the first visit and then I'm not doing it anymore. I don't need it. And so, this was their suggestion. But one of the other suggestions is that they were thinking of maybe trying to take her to like a informative dementia awareness class to give her a clue, because she has no idea what dementia is. And I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I mean,
does she like to go to classes in general?
No.
Well, then I'm not sure why it would be a great idea to send her to a class about dementia if she does. I mean, for people who like to learn, I will sometimes say, well, if it's a learning experience, if you want to go, we're doing a program. It's about cognitive change and aging. And some of the things we'll be talking about would be dementia and, depression, anxiety, and some other things that people sometimes experience, as well as things you can do that are healthy for your brain. But it doesn't sound like she's the kind of lady that would go, oh, well, that sounds really interesting. I would love to go hear about that. She would probably exist right there. So why the hell should I go to that thing? I mean, that's bullshit. I mean, if you want to go. I don't see any point for me going. So it just sounds like maybe the neurologist isn't really paying attention to your mom as an individual when he's coming up with these ideas, she or he is coming up with the ideas. They're not horrible ideas. It just doesn't sound like it matches your mom and who she is as a human being. It might make more sense to have one person say, I wanted to come in. I know you're probably not going to like it. I got that. I'm really wanting to find out how things are going for you. I know you've been to the neurologist. They've talked to you. Are you feeling like you're doing this, or this right now with how things are going in your life? If you had to rate it, would you say life is like this, or life is like this? I mean, I think if you could find somebody who was comfortable enough working and talking with her, it would be about building a relationship with her, not filling out forms and documenting and getting things. I think if she if she views the interaction as she's a patient and they're professionals, you're going to go pretty much nowhere, because that's not what she values. Doesn't sound like.
Yeah, she doesn't want to go to any of those appointments. And so this is just them trying to figure something out. But
yeah, and I think what I would say is they need some new strategies on how to connect to people, because using standard model is probably not a very effective model for many people living with dementia. And it just makes it really hard on the family members trying to get people connected. And it doesn't work effectively, because then it puts you in the monkey seat of the monkey in the middle kind of thing, trying to negotiate this. And then she'll blame you. Well, why did you ask these people to come in anyway? Well, Mom, it was the neurologist. Why do you listen to him? I'm your mother. If you're going to listen to him, then you go see him. I don't, this is ridiculous. I don't understand why you're so busy in my business.
that is exactly what she does. And it's just very hard to try to make it nice. And
so looking for the right kind of support for her may not be through the neurologist's office. It might actually be another support structure for her, because it sounds like they have a fairly structured way of wanting to help. And it sounds like that way is not her way of getting assistance in any shape or form, or even making relationships happen. And right now you need a relationship before you can help.
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
Yeah.
So, but you've been very helpful.
Sorry, I don't have good news, but I think you're in the right track. It's just the wrong lane.
You're right. And I just was trying to force that issue, but it really isn't that necessary. We were just trying to move it along.
Yeah, there's ways to get there. It's just a different route. It just doesn't sound like that's going to be a safe route to pick, because she's going to start really getting really territorial. Cool.
Thanks, Jenny. So Teepa, I've noticed in the comments here in Zoom and also on YouTube, we've got an audience building over there. A lot of questions that are really personal or have a lot of detail. And I just wanted to mention, if we don't get to your question today, please send us an email at info@teepasnow.com, or you can send one to consult@teepasnow.com. And we've got consultants who will do a free 30-minute just conversation with you to get some more information and to help you figure out some new things that you can try in these situations and really get some of that personal attention and to be able to have a conversation with somebody. So if you want more information about that, definitely look us up at teepasnow.com or send us an email and we'll get you connected to somebody. And speaking of which, on the live chat today, I was having a conversation with Elaine. Is she? Yeah. Elaine, did you want to go ahead and ask your question for Teepa?
Hold on.
You got it. Oh, you lost it.
I'll unmute you. Just hang on.
Don't do anything. Corey's going to help. Or Corey's going to try to help.
Wow.
I noticed that today on my webinar and Zoom as well.
Oh, there you go, Elaine. Say something.
I had to hit a button. I went ahead and hit the button. I'm sorry. So you can hear me.
Yes, we got it.
I sent a question. I'm so happy to meet you, Teepa. You've been a joy in my life here recently. And unfortunately, my mother also right now is in the middle of a very active case of shingles on her face.
Ooh.
So I've been home with her all week. And yes, if I'm in my pajama top, it's because I'm being comfortable with her. So I apologize.
You're not naked. I think it's great, Elaine. I mean, I'm in favor of showing up with something on your top. That's good.
Exactly. At any rate, she's doing well and under good care. It's not gotten into her eye, so we're happy about that. I've been having some issues with, I'm the primary caregiver. My mother's been living with me for 2.5 years. My dad died 10 years ago. She was living down at the beach 2.5 hours away, and we've convinced her it was time to move up here, really in the nick of time. I basically take care of everything, but I do have 3 siblings that live nearby and help out as they can. I recently had a shock when I came home one day to a registration renewal on my mother's car, on a car that she had signed over the title to a year ago, and my brother was supposed to have it in his name. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but that led to me finding out that he owed her other money, and she told him he didn't have to pay it back, and he said okay. And then I found out my sister, the same thing happened, and we're talking thousands of dollars.
Yep.
And I'm one of 8 kids. We were raised in a family. Our parents didn't give us money. It's just not what we did.
Right.
So you have taught me that we have to keep things the way they always were. Plus, my mom sold her house. She has a little bit of a nest egg, but we're going to need it. And, I'm like, there's not going to be an inheritance. Let's get real. So everything got worked out with that. That was good. It required me getting a durable power of attorney and really standing my guns, which was hard for me. I'm not that person, but I do it for my mom. But now I have one sibling who is trying to undermine me at every step of the way. She's angry because I caught her on trying to keep $1,800 and she didn't tell me about it, and she's mad. So, and one of the biggest issues that I'm hoping you can help me with, Teepa, is that since my mom's been here in the beginning, all of us went to her primary care doctor, who is a geriatric doctor, and everybody got to meet her. They're all on the list to talk to the doctor. My mother loves us all. She's already had 3 sons die. So my mother, and just, this shouldn't blow you away, but my mother has 80 grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren.
Wow.
80. So we're a big family, but I don't get much help. So let's just say that from the beginning. We're all pretty local, too. At any rate, they're doing the best they can, and my mother's my best friend, so I'm not complaining because I love her and taking care of her. But my mother made it very clear to me from the beginning that she really only wanted me to go to that main appointment every 6 months because I let her talk as the patient. I sit there quietly and listen, and then at the end when she's done, I might say, "Oh, Mom, you know what? We were talking the other day about that thing that you were complaining about. Maybe you should tell the doctor about that too." And I just fill in the blanks. When this other sibling comes, she talks nonstop. She puts words in my mother's mouth, and I get very stressed, and I feel the cortisol stressing through me, and I'm trying to do my breathing, and it's not really working because she and I are the only 2 girls in the family, and we do not get along. And I'm the oldest. I'm not the oldest child, the oldest daughter.
You're the oldest daughter.
Tell me, so I was keeping it from her, but now she's found out and she's demanding that she goes to every appointment, and it's got my mother upset because she doesn't want her there. And we have an appointment next Wednesday for the shingles follow-up. And I'm thinking this is going to have to be brought up in the doctor's office, but I don't know. What do you think? I'm like,
well, one of the things, if your mom does the physician work with your mom and feel that she still has capacity to make some choices? Maybe not all the choices, but some choices.
Yes. And the doctor is a wonderful doctor who spends every appointment at least 45 minutes with my mother.
Okay, then my recommendation would be to go ahead and call the nurse ahead of time and say, my mom wants to give the doctor a message about who's to come to the appointments with her. I want her to tell the doctor. I don't want it to be me telling the doctor. I want her to tell the doctor and explain, I can support her, but have her explain why it is she wants me to be the person and not my sister. And she wants to share that with the doctor ahead of time. And she's going to ask the doctor to let my sister know that for right now, this is going to be just you and Mom and the doctor for right now. It may change in the future, but for right now, that's what your mom is asking for.
And I have called upon them when I couldn't, for some reason, take her. But the office is small. There's a lot of, there's 4 of us, and we all get in there, and it's just overwhelming to her. And I'm trying to she's in the mid stages. She's not. Some things are getting really bad. Other things are still pretty good. So she's not a wanderer.
Having her say to the doctor, for right now, I'm doing a modification of my healthcare power of attorney, if possible. I'd like to just have my one daughter there, not two daughters there. If it changes in the future, well, that's fine. And, that's okay. But for right now, I want my daughter who's durable power of attorney to be the one in the appointments with me for right now.
Okay.
Could you
And then
my other
when
daughter?
my mom talks to her, then the doctor will bring that up, because my sister's definitely coming to this follow-up appointment, and she took her for the shingles, and I don't want to rock the
Okay.
boat on that, because she did take her, and I'll be there as well. And that's only because she wasn't with me for the weekend. I'm the only person that's ever seen shingles, and she was with people that didn't know what it was. So
Gotcha.
kind of sad.
So it happened
Anyway,
fast. Yeah.
So let the doctor help us out, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's very
Let the doctor be
stressful.
the bad guy. Let your mom talk to the doctor. So what I might do is wait till after this session and let the
Okay.
doctor experience your sister again.
Okay.
And just take your breathing treatment during the session. And
Maybe
then
a respirator.
I know, take your respirator with you. But plan to have it happen after the session. So your mom doesn't have to be present in a session when your sister might go a little amber and get distressed about the whole thing and want to argue. And so let the physician do it as a sidebar, not in a meeting of 4 people, would be my recommendation.
And honestly, I've learned a very valuable lesson for myself in this. I didn't tell my sister and other siblings this, because I put myself in their place thinking, how would I feel if my mom told me she didn't want me to be the one? So I tried to just take care of it. That was a mistake. I should have been honest from the first place and said, this is mom's wishes. This is
That's
not
correct.
me. But some
That's
of them
right.
do think they've always thought I manipulate her, because she and I are very close and we're similar, and I don't manipulate her. I
No,
don't.
and I think that's why she has to be the one to tell the doctor with your support. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, that's a really good choices, Elaine. It's just really hard to really, I think you're remarkable in that you were able to hold the line and not let people take advantage of mom's changed ability to manage her funds, because it is tempting to not be the bad guy. And not hold the line hard. Although from history, that mom was not giving away money. So that's
Right.
a typical pattern for her. And you're trying to sustain that pattern of how she was, because you're absolutely right. You're going to need every resource you have in the long run.
And I told him, I said, I have a good retirement package, but I'd kind of like to not have to go into mine, because I might live a long time. And, quite frankly, it's just the way we were raised.
Yeah,
We were 8 kids that
yeah.
our father worked at the government printing office. I mean, we didn't have that kind of money. And it's just hard, because it's like, why, just because she sold her house, she has money, you're going to borrow it. And I'm like, I was worried about those people calling her on the phone she didn't know. I wasn't worried about my own family members.
Okay, Elaine, hold up 4 fingers. I want to review this with you. People who living with dementia are at high risk for fraud and issues with financial abuse. Do this.
Yes.
1 out of 4 times, it will be a person well-known, either a family member or a good friend, who's taking advantage of the situation. And that's 1 out of 4. So 25% of the time, for people living with dementia, it's someone who's intimate with the situation and is actively taking advantage of the situation and walks away having not contributed to the supportive care for the individual. So that's pretty significant. 25% is pretty significant.
Yes, very significant. Yes, like many things, families often can be the first bad thing.
It can be a resource, or it can be a bad situation where people just don't think about it that way. But it is that way. And sometimes it's active. It's very active. So
well, I mentioned to Corey on the side note that your hand underhand has been a godsend for me to keep my mom and to keep me walking at her pace more than her trying to keep up with me. We do some traveling through airports. Yeah, we do some flying, and it really worked in airports, because people want to cut in front of her all the time. Like 20-year-olds want to cut in front of my 86-year-old mother, and I'm like mother hen, okay? Like, I will tell a 20-year-old off in a heartbeat if they cut my mother off. So they're
you're just working on their tolerance skills. That's all. They forget that, when you're behind them, they sort of forget, listen, I know how to put the brakes on, sweetheart.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good question, Elaine. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Sure.
All right. Next, we've got Kathy Kendall. Let's see if
Hey,
Kathy.
Kathy. Let's see if she, I'm trying to find names. I'm so bad at this. Oh, there she is. I see you, Kathy. You're up beside Beth for me.
Right.
Yeah, you got it. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are.
Yeah, for us here in Australia, it's good morning. So
There you go.
My question is, we have a resident who, a female resident who is wanting male companionship, pure just companionship. She just wants to hold their hands or sit beside them on the couch, you know, resting on their shoulder.
Yep.
It has the tendency to be misinterpreted by the men, but it also is causing jealousy amongst the men. How do you have any suggestions on how we might manage this?
So let's talk about her history a little bit. So was she married previously?
Yes.
How long?
She's widowed.
How long had she been married, do you think, Kathy?
Okay, how old is she? She's in her 80s. She's been widowed about 5 years and married most of her life.
Okay, so as far as you know, story of their relationship, were they a affectionate couple? Did they, were they people who held hands before and sat and maybe spooned or crooned or sat together most of their married life?
Yes.
Okay, so what we have is somebody who's not being discriminatory. I mean, she doesn't discriminate. This is my husband, this is not my husband. This is a male being, and I'm in a home, so it must be my home, and that must be my husband. So her brain, I suspect, is impaired enough that she doesn't quite get the idea of this man is not the man that I married. She's in a circumstance that makes it feel a home-like setting. They've got a couch, and her brain is just going, well, I'm just sitting with my fella. And she may be a little mixed up on time. She may not even know she's in her 80s, well, maybe into her 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s. But it sounds as though she's looking for a hand contact and comfort seeking. What happens if you as a care provider sit next to her and give her a hug and hold her hand and maybe a back rub? What does she do with that?
She just sits there. She doesn't really participate.
Does she seem to dislike it, or it's neutral?
Neutral.
Do you have any male providers?
We do.
What happens if a male provider sits next to her and lets her hold his hand and lean on his shoulder?
We actually haven't tried that.
Okay, so I'm wondering whether what she's really seeking, if she really does recognize gender differences, and she's not really a female to female gender. So she's not just looking for a sensory experience, she's looking for a relationship a little bit, like a male-female relationship. But she's not looking for sex, and she's not really wanting to kiss. It's just really companionship. And she just sounds like a lonely lady who's looking for the other half of her, because it was the other half of her for most of her life, and she's missing half of her.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not uncommon for males, if they're widowed, to not necessarily seek a wife unless that was their pattern. But if it's not their pattern, it doesn't feel right to them, because not all couples are that openly affectionate. I mean, many couples sit in separate chairs, do separate things. They're not like that. And it sounds like that is a pattern for her, and she's really missing that completeness, that sense of wholeness.
Our problem is with the other men. Our problem is with the other men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do some of them like her and then others then think she's theirs instead? Is that more the direction it goes?
Yes, and some of course take a sexual interest.
Okay, so then if we're having the gentleman getting interested in this lady, one of the things we might want to think about is eliminating couches and just having chairs. Because if you just have chairs, although people can hold hands, they certainly don't have the capacity to sit right up next to one another.
Yeah, it's so that would then impact the other residents who like their couches. So
yeah, so it gets a little messy because what she needs is no couch so that there's no visual cue of sitting together. And although you can hold hands, you wouldn't snuggle because there's no place to snuggle. When there's couches, apparently in her world, snuggling is a thing to do. And so we have two different patterns of visual cueing. And the males, unfortunately, do feel that she's theirs. So that's even more reason to think about having a male care provider, perhaps partnering with her, because that is a different look to it. I mean, that is not another man in the environment as much as it is a care provider.
a way to go. That might be something to look at, yes.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you can't change furniture, you really do have an issue going on, because then whoever's sitting on the couch she's going to gravitate to. And then the other gentlemen feel like that's not fair, that, you know, either that guy needs to get away from her because she's mine. And now this pattern of territoriality, and males can unfortunately get fairly territorial when it comes to females.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Anybody else have some thoughts on that? Beth, did you have any insight or thought other than what I came up with?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about location. So I'm trying to think of the 6 pieces of the puzzle. And if we can't mess with the couches, because then that takes away some of the things that are working, what have you got in terms of opportunities of space? So I'm thinking of our residents who have been actively reaching out to other women's breasts and really touching people in places that make some of the staff uncomfortable. And yet when we recognize what their unmet need is and we go and spend some time with them, we realize they just needed hand, underhand. So if Olivia, could I borrow you for a minute? Just I need to hold your hands for just a second, if you could help me out. And if that's the case, I'm wondering if seeing her with other people is the issue. Is there some other space you can use? So for example, if Olivia is my person living with dementia, and when I say hand under hand, it's this, and then this, and bringing the person that really wants that intimate contact really up close. And in fact, Olivia, if I may be so bold, is getting a little side boob. But I'm able to give her the touch she needs. That sort of intensity outside somewhere else where others aren't seeing it. Thanks, kiddo. Appreciate that.
So
Teenagers are
that
handy.
would be
Is that a thought?
what a female staff member might do with some of the males, so that the males are not just sitting around watching this other event, but they're getting some individual attention as well from females, but in a controlled fashion.
And then the same with the female getting that physical contact she needs, although physically and visually away from the other staff or the other residents who might be seeing jealousy. I don't know if that's an avenue.
We could do that. We have areas that we could do that, and which would be visually away from from the main lounges. Yes.
Yeah. So those are some possibilities, Kathy, to give it a shot, and then you can let us know how that either of those ideas work out as you're moving forward, because it's a lifelong pattern for one person and a visual cue of another person.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Teepa, Liz is on here and she's got a question for you about hand under hand.
Sure. And there she is in the middle. Yes. Hey, Liz. And eventually she'll figure out how to get that unmuted, or Corey can help or something. Maybe not.
Yeah,
There you
I've
go.
done it.
You did it.
Hooray! Hi, Teepa. Hi, everyone. I'm calling from England, so across the Atlantic.
Oh my! It's quite late for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nearly midnight, but it's fine. It's fine. It's
good.
Great to be with you. My question: when we, I'm a trainer, a certified trainer. When we teach hand under hand, we quite regularly have care staff who sort of challenge the hand under hand and say they're not allowed to to hold residents in that way. They're probably taught sort of palm to palm during their training for moving and handling, and we quite regularly get challenge and saying they're not allowed to do it, and it might be a good thing but they can't do it. But
yeah,
it's difficult to know how to respond sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So Beth has been actively working on this issue. One of the options I will use if I have somebody who's really frightened or really adamant that they can't do a very traditional hand under hand, is I will have the person living with dementia hold on to my forearm with their thumb along my arm and their fingers wrapped around so that they're getting most of the motion. It's not as effective as having them within my palm, but it does give them a sense of controlling me so that they feel they're the boss of me and not I'm the boss of them. So it's a slight improvement. Beth actually has some pictures of hand under hand with no thumb, because what the concern is, where the concern comes, is if you choose to challenge a person with your hand under their hand and you want to fight with them because you want to control them. And that's never what this was designed for. It was not designed that way. It's not a control position. It's not a position that you're trying to keep a person from exerting their desire to let go of you or to move away from them. It's simply a way that you can communicate what it is you're trying
to connect.
And what people have used it in past with is trying to hold a person, not with our technique, but another technique. And what can happen is, this is like when you're skiing or you're doing some other active thing. If you try to resist and the person comes out of hand under, I can't do it because I only have one hand here. They can actively take your thumb and wrench it. But that's only if you haven't listened multiple times that they need you to let go and move away, that what you're doing is intrusive and you no longer have permission to touch them in that way. And the problem is people have not listened to that information. So therefore they do put themselves at risk if you continue to hold on to someone who's told you, let go of me. And you've tried to cue them, you've given them a quick pump and said, I'm here to help you. And they go, still go. Then you just flow with it and come out of the hand under hand. People without awareness and knowledge get themselves in trouble if they think they can use it as a weapon. It was never meant as a weapon.
No. Yeah.
Did you want to demonstrate something? Because you got Olivia there. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really delicate one. Like Teepa says, it's not necessarily an argument you want to get into. We do have the studies backing up hand under hand now in an email I can happy to share out. But what Teepa is talking about, just so they have another hand. So we look at shake, and I'm going to have you turn with the email so that a little closer. So here's our normal hand under hand hold, right? So I'm holding not the thumb per se, but
a little higher. There you go, Beth.
There you go. But the actual meat of the hand. I don't know if you can see that. One of the ways in which in Wales that this has been a big health and safety issue for is the fact that we actually go ahead and stay gripped to me, keep that contact going, and what we end up doing is we end up doing no thumbs at all. Okay. And so we can still get that sort of proprioceptive and that endorphin punch, and we're still getting that squishy part of the hand and the squishy part of their hand. So it's still safe. Thank you, Teepa. Yes. However, there's no thumbs held. And if you try this with someone, it doesn't feel exactly as comforting as we all know hand under hand can feel. there's a wonderful thing to it.
It can actually end up sometimes even squeezing the thumb, which can hurt sometimes.
Yeah, and so if you do it up here as the people are interpreting it, you can squeeze thumbs, and that's what they're thinking. But that's not our hold. Our hold is definitely the hand, and we're not holding them, they're holding us. And the minute Olivia wants to go ahead, she can.
Yeah.
However, we get it. That's really a struggle, and you may want to choose to go. I'm gonna have you turn just a little bit, and so we get closer here. If you actually unlink thumbs and do just palm to palm, you can see our thumbs are not actually even hooked. Is that something might be a not ideal opportunity, Teepa, or?
It's the kind of thing, what we're facing is a lot of prejudice and a lot of misuse of hand activities in general. So we're coming into a situation where people have unfortunately basically been fairly abusive in how, I'm just going to say it, it's fairly abusive that people were trying to get people to do things by forcing a little bit. And now what happens is people then say, well, you can't do any of that. And it's like, well, that's the baby in the bathwater. And if you don't set yourself up in those situations, I mean, I've got to tell you, what do you think about my hands? Are they pretty functional, or are you seeing lots of damage going on there?
They look pretty good.
I've been doing this 40 years, and I quite honestly do not get asked to see easy people. I mean, I don't get asked to see people who are a piece of cake and anybody could help. And I have all my fingers attached, and I, you know, it's really people's interpretation of what they think their job is. And my job is to support someone and to note when they're telling me enough, what you're doing, I don't like what you're doing. And I give them space till we figure out what I did that made them feel that way, because there's got to be a way around, and it's not continuing to push my agenda at that point. That's the tricky part. And people without training, you don't know that. And people are trying to do things, and it results in often an unfortunate situation following up.
Yeah. I mean, that's really helpful. I think we try and talk about it's a way of connecting, and but sometimes we're trying to challenge quite a lot of prejudice and a culture perhaps that's been very different. So I think it's helpful. Thank you, Beth. It's helpful to see an alternative as well, because we've had a couple of occasions where the people we train in, you know, are really arguing and
it's like, I don't want, I mean, it doesn't really serve us well to help, you know, someone who's arguing with you. You can't help somebody who thinks you're wanting to argue. And it's like, so here's an option. You could try this one. So as you can see, Beth is helping Tim eat, and he's holding on to her, and there is no thumb lock. Which makes it a little more awkward for that, but it does work. It's just more awkward for both of you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Sure. No, good question, Liz. I'm glad you brought it up, because it happens. We've had that question a bit. Yep.
Okay. Well, that's helpful to know as well, because it sometimes just feels like you're a bad trainer and you can't. Thank you.
And it's interesting. It's only select cultures that it comes up. I mean, it's a very interesting phenomenon that it only comes up in very selected cultures.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Wanda, if you want to unmute and share your question with Teepa.
Teepa, I want to say hi. And
hey, Wanda.
Thank you for everything that I have learned in the past year and a half, and it all works. You're amazing. Thank you.
Well, don't get this may be the honeymoon period, Wanda. I mean, be careful there. I don't want you like thinking the whole marriage will turn out like this.
No. I have a lady that she's a Pearl, and I've been taking care of her for 3 years. And she is now to the point that she doesn't want to do anything. She's in a wheelchair like 95% of the time. And I have to literally pick her up now and move her and put her on the toilet and put her back. And the other day, for the first time, she yelled at me. She hollered at me. She hit me. She growled at me. She called me stupid, and she tried to bite my face. I was very, very peaceful with her. I was very I said, I'm sorry that this is happening to you. I'm sorry. But for 40 minutes, that woman was uncontrollable.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what else could I have done to make her more at peace, but I mean, she was absolutely,
okay. Did it occur, Wanda, right after a mobility effort?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So okay, good. So let's start there, because at this point in the disease, what's happening for her is inside your ear, there are 3 little canals in each ear, and they're called the vestibular canals. And what they allow you to do is know where gravity is and know where you are compared to gravity. And there's one that goes around horizontally and one that is vertical and one that is a diagonal. And when they work together in each ear, it allows you to know when you're moving forward, when you're moving up, and when you're moving back. Her disease is progressing so far that the wiring from those centers is coming apart. And so every time you move her, she's panicking because she can't find gravity now. Any movement is panic stations, and her body tenses up and her muscles tense up, and she can't breathe. And she, oh God.
Yeah, exactly what she did.
And so what you're experiencing is, I don't know, did you ever have children, Wanda? Did you have children?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when the babies were very young and you went to the doctor's office near the very beginning and they would do the exam and everything, and then they get to the very last thing that they did and they would drop the baby backward, and they were checking what's called a Moro reflex, and they drop them back and the baby would go.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
For the next half hour. And that's when they hand the baby to you and says, oh, you're fine. And you're thinking, what the hell? What did you do to my child? You've turned them into a devil child. Because what the Moro does is check your ability and recognition that gravity is scary. And the Moro says, oh, it's an intact reflex system that's going to try to grab onto mom if you fall backward.
Okay.
So what's happening is you're moving her sort of like she's an infant now because she has no active mobility.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, her vestibular system is dying. And so she's panicking every time you move her. And rather than seeing you as the safe mother figure for her, you terrified her because you tipped her back or tipped her, and she panicked. And she became infuriated because she felt like you were trying to kill her in that moment.
Yeah, she kept saying, no, no, no,
Yeah. So what that says is she needs maybe more swaddling or more support when you go to move her. Because you're trying to move her with just your body and your hands, and she's not feeling secure and safe.
Okay.
So this might be a way that you want to think about taking like a blanket, a stretchy blanket or something, and wrapping so that she feels safe and secure. And we're going to move on 3. On 3, we move. We're going 3. Count with me. We're going to move on 1 and 2, and here we go. We're going on 3. There you go. Now, there you go. We got it. We got it. We got it.
Okay.
When you're describing that you're having to move her whole, I'm imagining there's a possibility you're going 1, 2, 3, move.
No, I usually do. I say, we're going to move on 3, move with me. 1, 2, 3. And I put my arms around her, underneath her arms, and I hug her.
Yeah.
Yeah. because
And
she won't
it's-
even move her arms anymore. You know, they're
No,
up
she
behind
can't move
against
her arms.
chest.
I mean, she can't even move her arms. So she feels
Yeah.
very vulnerable with the move.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
thinking about using something, whether it's a beach towel that you can bring around her, and so that
Okay,
she
yes.
has a little space and you're moving with holding the beach towel,
Okay.
not trying to get her quite so close to you, because now
Okay.
your movement makes her scared.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate
it
that.
also
I
gives
will
you a
definitely
little
give that a try.
Yeah, a little space between you and she, so that you're a little safer if she
Yeah.
does have a strong reaction.
Yes.
And you, it sounds like you did a good job. And you might want to give her a little more emotion with, I scared you. I scared you. I'm sorry. I scared you. I didn't mean to scare you, and I scared you, and I hate that I scared you.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe
Okay.
a little more emotion so she knows that you got how upset she is.
Okay. I will. Okay.
I'm not
Thank
sure
you.
she believes that you know how you screwed her up. And that's, she's really not very happy with you right now.
No, she wasn't. It's like, yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I will
Yeah.
definitely use that.
You're welcome. Well, good
Thank
luck,
you.
Wanda. Let us know how you do, because it is you're in a hard place. Watch you don't get hurt. She
Yeah.
needs you.
Yeah. My husband was kind of concerned for my welfare when I said she tried to bite me. So,
Yeah. So
know.
give yourself a little space with her, because she is
Okay.
more anxious than she's ever been.
yes. Can I ask one more question real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. She will sit there and just all of a sudden she'll just jump.
Mhm.
Is that's normal, right?
Yeah, she may be having little petit mal seizures, or it may be also her balance and coordination. She thinks she's falling off balance, and
Okay.
she actually knocks herself off balance because she overcompensates. So have you ever almost been falling asleep?
Yes.
And you catch yourself and you
Yep,
startle
yep.
yourself. It's that kind of thing where she's losing alertness back on, but now
Yeah.
the movement scares her, and it's like, oh crap, and you can feel your heart start to race, because it
Okay.
so surprises you, because it's sort of a super alert, because your brain goes, you're about to take a header. And it's your primitive brain warning you, you're gonna fall. And so you wake up and you can't quite figure out why you're so distressed, but you're actively distressed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All
Yeah.
right. I will definitely let you know.
Cool.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Wanda.
Teepa.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Absolutely.
So Teepa, I've had a couple of people write in about, these are adult children who are watching their parents. One parent has dementia, the other does not.
Yeah.
And the parent that does not get it. And there's some yelling and some fighting, or some, she's doing this on purpose, or
She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we have is we have a situation where, as a third party, it's pretty clear the thing that's happening is one individual is showing cognitive failure, but the other person is showing emotional failure. And when I say emotional failure, they're struggling with the idea of letting go of their partner. And they cannot, in that moment, see the person who's living with dementia as anything other than their partner, not a person who's changing. And so they think the change is a partnership change. And so they want their partner back. And so they're demanding that that partner come and be a partner, because if they lose their partner, they'll be all alone. And they're also feeling like their child, you, don't like them so much anymore. And you're taking sides. And that makes them even more alone than they were before. So part of their distress is in this emotional sense of being isolated, and that you're listening to him and not to me. And that sense of taking sides, which isn't logical, but it's not a logical situation, because we have one person who's clearly showing that to the outside that this is not something they're choosing, but it feels like to the other person that it is a choice. So one of the things I'll try in those situations, but it's difficult to be the child and do it, is to say, So Mom, tell me what you're noticing with Dad, because I'm wondering whether we're noticing the same things or different things, because you said you feel like he does it on purpose. Tell me more about that. When you say that, tell me some examples of what you're noticing him doing that it feels to you like he's doing and he knows what he's doing. Tell me more about it. And really listen with an open mind, because what frequently comes up is that, okay, so what Mom isn't getting is that Dad isn't asking her for the 5th time because he's not paying attention. He's asking for the 5th time because he doesn't hear and get, he hears it, but he doesn't comprehend and hold on to the comprehension of what she's told him to do. And so then it's like, so you're thinking that he's not listening to you. He gets it and then he doesn't do what you ask him to do, and he knows that. So let me ask you something, Mom. Is this new or is this something he's been doing for a while? So it's relatively new. I wonder why it's kicked up so bad lately. Because did he always do this kind of stuff? I mean, were you always this annoyed with him, or is this relatively new? Huh. Well, I'm wondering if there's something going on with him that we're missing, why he's getting so ornery then. I mean, if you think he's being ornery, wonder why it's happening, because that's not, is it like Dad? I mean, is this sort of the guy you've always seen, or is this different? Yeah, I'm wondering whether it's worth a question at the doctor's office, see if we can figure out what's going on here. Because, I mean, I'm seeing him do some stuff too, and I'm not sure either, but I'm seeing it a little different, but I hear what you're saying. For you, it feels like he's doing it deliberately. So if that's the case, why in the world is he doing it so deliberately? Why is he wanting to make you so mad, I wonder? So instead of trying to get them to see what they can't see, accept what they're telling you they see, and see if you can get them to agree to a third-party intervention, which is taking them to the doctor. And then an advance call to the doctor on your part that says, I know I may not be healthcare power of attorney for my dad or my mom, although you might be. What I wanted you to know is that I'm really starting to notice some significant challenges between my mom and my dad. And I know Dad has been diagnosed with dementia, but Mom is really struggling with that. She thinks that a lot of what he's doing is not related to his dementia, but is deliberately done. Is there anyone or any support system you could recommend for us to get linked into? And you could make that recommendation rather than me trying to do it, because when I try to make a recommendation, what's happening is she's viewing that I'm siding with Dad and I don't see where she's coming from, and that I'm not getting it. So I could really use your help trying to find and get the right resources for us, because this is going nowhere good and I need help. But to really, to consider the possibility of not getting yourself in the middle of the two of them, so that both of them still have you. Nobody is losing you, and you actually convert this into an opportunity to bring in a third party, because it may be that your mom needs additional support, or as much as and as awful as it is, the possibility that your mom has early signs of her own dementia and that it's being hidden because of the more significant dementia. So, I mean, it's just a possibility, and nobody likes to look at those possibilities, but unfortunately they do exist, and we call them affectionately the twofer situations, where we have two people who have some form of dementia, one in a very early state and one in a more advanced state. And the person in the very early state, they tend to perceive things as against them, deliberately against them, and you can't fix that if indeed the issue is a dementia, or a significant depression, or a significant anxiety. If we have any of those things as a primary cause, we're going to have to get more support for that person to make any kind of transition, because they will need their own support system. And we have to start creating a little distance and alternate supports for each of these individuals because the partnership is starting to come apart. And neither will be able to sustain it. And yet we don't want them to lose their marriage. And so how do we get the help each of them needs for their conditions so that they continue to like each other as human beings and not feel like children are picking sides and abandoning them.
So on the other side of that, Teepa, we've got some people who have expressed that the person living with dementia is feeling like a failure or feeling hopeless, or is expressing ideas of just not wanting to live anymore.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
So Beth, I'm going to help you. Will you be a person who's living with dementia who doesn't see a purpose to going on?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have, Corey, a sense of how far into the disease we're talking?
It looks like not very far.
Okay.
One of them, they just did like some 6-month cognitive testing, I think was the time frame.
Okay.
So it's
okay,
fairly new.
Okay. So, hey, Beth.
Hey.
Hey, it's Teepa.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, they called you in, huh?
Well, yeah. Sounds like things are going sort of, would you say things are going like this for you, things are going like this for you, or things are going like this for you?
Well,
Like
there's
that.
really not, yeah.
Yeah. So now tell me something, Beth. Now, is this relatively new, only since your diagnosis, or this has been happening for a while?
Well, it's pretty much came on for, with all the stuff that the physicians and the neurologists have been saying.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's
so a big part of this was figuring out what was going on as dementia.
Yeah, we got that one covered.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you hear the word dementia, tell me a little bit about where that puts you as a person.
They were pretty straightforward about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm basically looking at losing who I am, and and this is going to end with me in a nursing home in a bed, being a huge burden on my husband and my children. And this is exactly the way I've seen this with my family. I am not going there. It's not going to happen.
Okay. So you have some family history. So you had already some awareness of where ultimately this may go.
Yeah. Yep.
So how close to that are you right now, do you feel?
How close am I to
being in a nursing home, unable to do anything?
It's inevitable. At some point, this is going to happen.
Well, at some point, maybe, but how about right now? What are you able to get up and dress yourself and move about on your own right now?
Yeah. They've got some concerns about me driving. I don't see this affecting my driving yet. I mean, I've got a Tesla and the thing drives itself. It's actually the reason I got the Tesla.
So you did some advanced planning.
Yeah, and we're looking at the fact that they're saying that's not even an option now.
Okay, so they're saying, so tell me more about the they're saying. Tell me what that's about.
Well, the kids have become involved now, and I'm not even, apparently I can't even work. So, that's something that I have sort of done even in retirement.
Okay, so wow. So it sounds like you've had a lot of losses in addition to your diagnosis.
Yeah.
So what of everything do you feel like you're incompetent doing now?
I feel like a fool.
Okay, so you feel like people are judging you?
And even if they're not and they're being kind, I'm not stupid. I know I forget things. I mean, they say I can't drive, but that's why I got the Tesla.
Yeah. So you had some awareness that something was shifting some, and you planned on with the Tesla, your thought was, so it will drive me and take me places. It's almost like a self-driving car. That was your thinking with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was part of it. I had recognized I had a couple of flat tires, and they kept saying it was something that I had done. And, so.
Yeah. So your effort to try to manage things has been undermined. Even though you had this plan, it doesn't seem like it worked out very well.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think they brought me in there to get a diagnosis just to convince me that I need to give everything up.
Okay, so you're feeling like everything. Okay, so I'm curious about, would you be at all willing to work with me a little bit? Because I'm really interested in trying to figure out what you still have abilities to do and what you don't have abilities to do. Because I think that's a blanket statement, and I'm not seeing that even just talking to you right now, to be honest.
You're not seeing.
I still see you having lots of abilities. So I know it's not like it was, but I think where you're at is not really where maybe some people are thinking you may be, or where you're thinking you may be right this minute.
Well, if you can see something the neurologist didn't, I mean, I suppose that's why they had me talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as to what your capacities are right now. And it may not be driving a Tesla. I'm not saying it's driving a Tesla, but I am curious about what is possible, because I think you have a lot still going for you, and it's not how it was. But I'd like us to start checking some things out a little bit more closely, because I think it's sort of, that's a huge leap from where you've been. And I'm just not sure it's time to jump off the diving board yet.
Yeah, because I can't go there. If I am just going to sit here in the armchair and.
Yeah, why would you want to do that? I mean, you've never done that before. I could use your help working through this a little bit if you will. I mean, I really want to figure this out, because this doesn't seem or feel right to me.
Okay.
And I'll pause there, because our first step is just take two fingers and put them together, and then take your middle finger and put it behind the first finger. The person living with dementia has to feel like they have a backup, that they have somebody standing behind them and supporting them. Because what all too often happens when somebody gets dementia is they feel like they're all alone, and everybody's pulling away from them, and everybody's saying, you're not how you used to be, you aren't what you are, and you're going to fall down in a deep hole. And so what they actually need is not somebody to kiss it, make it better. It's really somebody who says, you know what, I think some things are changing, but I'm not sure everything's changing, and I think we should figure this out. And I want to offer you some support, but it's your call. I am not going to shove or push you anywhere, but I want us to sort of check out the possibility that maybe this isn't the end of everything right now. That's not saying where you'll end up. I'm not going to try to sell you on something. I just want to talk about right now. So Beth, from your perspective, did that seem authentic?
It did. There was a lot of anger there. I didn't know if this was a male or a female. And I know that's more of a male sort of reaction, is that anger to cover up the sadness. But I didn't know if that hit for folks, but the authenticity of it, I didn't feel like you were playing me.
Yeah, because you have a right to be angry, you have a right to be sad, to be lonely, to feel trapped, to feel like this isn't fair. And I think unless we're willing to unpack that with someone, they will spiral downward for quite some time. And people living with dementia, I talk and work with a lot of people living with dementia, and that is a very common pattern, that they feel they start to spiral down, and they're lucky if they can recover from that. Because the challenge is, and what I would say is, somebody's asking about what if they're not so logical. It's not a logical response. It's a very emotional support response. It's not going to be a logical. It's just, will you be willing to work with me a little bit? Is there a willingness? Do I have permission to continue to make a relationship build with you? And if Beth gets more angry, it's okay. I'm okay with more angry. Oh, I hate this. You hate it. And you know what? I hate it for you. It feels so unfair. Because they need somebody to be willing to be as distressed as they are with the distress they have. They don't need a really calm person who's going to bring them, you know, Beth, you know, I think everybody's trying their hardest, and I just need you to step up to the plate. Don't give up. I mean, that will just really put her through the stratosphere. Or send her into the deep end of the pool and not wanting to come back out, because clearly I don't get where her hurt is, and that's how significant Right, exactly. So we're talking about Stephanie saying, who wouldn't be depressed if you felt locked up? Yeah. So it's like being locked in the house. I can't use my Tesla. I thought all those kind of things. It's like, well, and then it sounds like number one is we got to figure out a way to break you out of this house a little bit. You need to not be trapped. This sucks. And tell you what, I'm willing to negotiate. Let's figure out how to get you out of here a little bit. Because I think that sense of there's no way out. The tricky part is enough, but not too much because of the stigma. Going out too far, getting too distant from my cave is really frightening at first because will everybody know? Will people notice the difference? Will people be able to see that I have this dementia? Because now everybody's labeling it in sort of that scary thing. So it really does take somebody who isn't scared of dementia to be with someone for a bit and say, well, tell you what, let's just sit on the porch and see if anybody says anything. And it's like, well, you know what? Let's go down the front walk and see if they say anything. If they say anything, I'm the one who broke you out, okay? I've got a cell phone. I can get help. Come on. And it's that willingness to take as many steps as they can take. And then when they say, that's enough, that's enough. All right, you know what? Before you go back, I need a hug. I need a hug. Because you were amazing. I don't know very many people that would come out and be present when it's that scary. And one of the most profound things, I think, is hugging and offering deep proprioceptive and saying, thank you for coming with me. That was a big, you took a big leap of faith. And I want to thank you. Not everybody can do that kind of thing, and you did it. Whew. Yeah, there's still a lot of driver of the Tesla in there. So to acknowledge that step out, because it is incredibly scary, and I think people underestimate it. I had the honor of being in Poland when Adam, who is a gentleman living with dementia, was the first person living with dementia who spoke to an international congress of professionals, indicating he used to be an engineer and he's living with dementia, and he has to use his finger traveling across the page of text because otherwise he would lose his place. And he was no longer able to do, and he's not able to watch his grandchildren. He's not able to, he can watch them, but he's not allowed to be in charge of them. And he's not, he was listing all these things that was missing, and he was doing it in a very stoic voice and absolutely no affect. And then he finished, and at the end, he was walking off quietly. And I saw him and I said, you did amazing. And I gave him a great big hug, and he smiled, and he looked out at the audience, and I gave him a thumbs up, and he gave himself a thumbs up, which for him was pretty huge, because in Poland, it's considered an embarrassment to have someone in your family who's developed dementia. And instead of being embarrassed of his dementia, he stood up and his wife stood beside him, but she was talking about discovering she was a caregiver. And he spoke about discovering he couldn't be how he used to be. And yet he wasn't going to be ashamed of it anymore because it wasn't something he did wrong. But he was trying to figure out how he was living with it. And he decided that rather than being hidden away, he was going to stand up and be visible. So it was a huge piece for him to be able to do that. And it was a huge piece that Marlena, who is his daughter-in-law, who is a PAC trainer and consultant and coach and engagement person, persuaded the committee to have him open the conference. And it was the first ever dementia conference they've ever held. So that was pretty phenomenal. So Corey, what else do we got cooking?
All right. Simple question, not so simple answer. Where does all the bad language come from?
The right temporal lobe, preserved.
See how easy that was?
So I can actually show you a picture since if we keep talking for a second, let me find my pictures. Give me a second. While you guys are looking at things, I'll show you the place in the brain where it lives and why it's so effective.
As she's pulling that up, I love the aspect of when I taught a workshop with a whole bunch of Felician nuns who entered the convent at the age of 13. Now, what is the one word that's a swear word that you don't say that often in the 1940s or even ever around a 13-year-old girl? The ultimate word, the F word.
Oh.
So even in dementia, these nuns, who you don't normally swear around a fully habited nun, hadn't really been exposed to the F word. And that was one word they did not have in dementia.
Oh, there you go. It's great when it works that way. All too often, it doesn't exactly work that way because many of us, we have learned those words. So where I want to show you, this is the left temporal lobe over here where you have vocabulary, comprehension, speech production. This is the wiring that lets it link into the rest of your brain so that if I say stand up and turn to your left, you can take that information, send it to the motor cortex, and you're able to stand up and turn to the left. It's also where you can tell me, did you mean turn to the left and do something, or so you can give me a response back, because it's also where you have the formation of language and you can answer me. And this is what you have left of that whole section by the end of this disease. And the thing that is absent is wiring. So if I say to you, stand up, you might say, oh, okay, but you don't do anything necessarily because to you, it's simply a chit chat. So this is where you have forbidden words. You will have the back and forth of conversation or an argument. It's where you'll have the rhythm of speech, and you can listen for a change in frequency, intensity, or volume to signal distress, and people can pick up on the rhythm of a question. It's also where you have stored over in this section, music, poetry, prayer, and counting. And you also have automatic rhythmic movement connections so that people living with dementia can dance better than they walk, and they can clap with great rhythm. So what we see here is this kind of wiring here and this kind of storage capacity. That's your file cabinets. And even in the late state of this disease where you don't have any language, look at all this wiring and look at the storage. Now it's not as good as it was, but it's still there. One of the other reasons we think people probably preserve forbidden words is they're the last way I can signal to you that I'm not okay, you're threatening me, in anything other than physical mode. So if I say, go to hell, back off of me, shit, what are you doing? That's a signal to you that I don't find what you're doing okay. I'm scared, I'm frightened, I'm angry, I'm upset. And so by swearing, what that allows you to recognize is, ooh, if I don't figure out how to make this better within the next tiny bit, this is a high risk situation for becoming something physical, because when you feel threatened, your risk is going from verbal to physical in no time at all. So that's the power of appreciating this is relatively preserved. The other reality is if I cannot find the word, I need to go to the bathroom and have a bowel movement, what I might be able to say is I need to shit. And so in that case, I'm not even using it as a swear word. It's an informational word, but it's because I can get to it. And I can't get to, I need to go have a bowel movement. So it actually becomes functional for me. So that was the thing I wanted to show folks, is it literally, there's a difference between the left and the right side of the brain when it comes to temporal lobe dysfunction and preservation. And this is pretty consistent. For some reason, the left tends to be more consistently attacked than the right. And the language center is, for some reason, a real hit squad. It's truly an amazing hit squad when it comes to dementia, almost all forms of dementia. Whereas the rhythm section is less consistently attacked and often fairly preserved. Which is why we have music, poetry, prayer, and counting as preserved abilities frequently with great regularity to some degree.
Thank you, Teepa.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I could get you to talk a little bit about diamonds, we've got two different things going on. First question was why, is there a reason that people in a diamond state seem to be hyper-focused on finances?
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have a situation where we have a diamond who's very aware. She is living in a facility, and she upsets a lot of the other residents because of things like, someone's talking about their husband and she says, "Oh no, your husband's dead."
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out how to navigate a social situation and she's very helpful at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just kind of touching on, I guess, the rigidness of diamonds and how we work with that.
Now, so one of the challenges of working with diamonds is diamonds are very aware of lines of authority frequently. And if they respect authority, they will respect an authority figure. But if they are an authority figure, they expect to be respected. So diamonds are all about value, and they tend to be fairly traditional and lifelong values. So what I care about is having the resources, and it's all about resources, and money is a resource. And so what happens is, excuse me, this is my money and we are not going to waste it. So if we look at how I've been, so some diamonds, it's all about retaining and having money, especially diamonds that grew up during times of need, or if they ever experienced episodes of not having money or resources when they needed it. Diamonds classically will develop almost what you would call a hoarding or a collecting. If, however, they have funds, then what they want to demonstrate is I have the power to spend my money how I want to spend my money, where I want to spend my money, and I can do what I want with it. You are not the boss of me. And so what they're doing is exerting their authority, and authority to them equals the ability to spend money, use money, power money. So they're a power broker. And so when it comes to funds, that's a sense of empowerment. And so some people will become incredible purchasers. And so they buy crap, they never even open it. It's just the ability to purchase it becomes so important to them because it means I am still me. I can do what I want. Nobody tells me what to do. If I want a pair of shoes, I get a pair of shoes. And that's also why gambling becomes a big issue, but why bingo has to be run in a very consistent way with very consistent patterns, because it's sort of a legitimized gambling, but it has to be done within parameters for people who are very rigid. Now, the woman who is kind and gentle, but at the same time, what she sees, she says, she's actually exhibiting the diamond characteristics of the inability to control an impulse. So she doesn't quite have her tongue leashed. Whereas before she would have discriminated between what is okay to say out loud and helpful to people, she now doesn't discriminate what's helpful and what's hurtful. If it's true, it's true. And she can't see the difference between telling someone something that's true but hurtful and telling somebody something that's true and helpful. To her, they're equal. There's equal value in them. So why wouldn't you tell her husband is dead? Well, because it hurts her feelings. Well, I'm sorry it hurts her feelings. So what we have is a diamond who, although kind, is a head first diamond. So they're a logical, reasonable diamond who has no filter now, whereas before she would have picked up on what we call empathy cues, or cues of the other individual that might hurt their feelings. So why does it matter anyway? Well, for her, telling the truth is the most important thing. That's a value she has. And so you tell people what they should know. So if somebody says, well, where is my husband? I need to talk to my husband. Her statement of, well, he's dead, you can't talk to him, she sees this just being helpful. So if you can get staff to immediately, and it has to be quickly, say, you're wanting to know where your husband is. Did you need to ask him something, or were you just wanting to know where he was? You have to have staff who can step into the breach and engage the individual who's asking the question, and either transition that human being into a safer space that isn't in the presence of the truth teller, or the truth teller will feel compelled to get them, because she's going to ask the question not once or twice if she's not getting a response that moves her forward in the unmet need she's expressing. So it's actually a complicated thing in that staff have to be tuned into the one asking the question, and the other person might need to help the diamond by saying, you know what, Mary, you know so many facts about people and you are absolutely accurate. Her husband is, really not available. But let me see if I can figure out what it is she really needs, because I think she's asking for him because she's wanting something. And let me see if I can figure it out. Thank you for helping me see that she's really needing her husband and he's not available. You're right, he is gone. So one of the things to do is acknowledge she's right, because diamonds don't like it when you diss them. And if we're trying to go, Mary, please don't say that to her. It's not helpful. Well, but it's true. I know it's true, Mary, but if you just say that, it hurts her feelings. Well, if Mary could discern that, she wouldn't be saying it in the first place. And if she tends to be a helpful person, she thinks she's being helpful. Us telling her she's not helpful just displaces her, and it's not going to reduce her sense and her desire to be helpful. And she's still going to say it. So we've got to come up with a new strategy, because all we're making her think is we don't like her. And that's going to make her need to be more helpful to people that do like her, because it's not, she doesn't see us as valuing her. So we've got to figure out a way to show her that we value her while we take the other person and support them. So Corey, somehow we've used up an hour and a half. I don't know exactly what happened.
Somebody was talking a lot. I know that.
I'm sorry. It was all about me. That's why I was doing it. I just wanted to run my mouth.
Well, that is why we're here. It is Ask Teepa Anything, not Teepa and Corey and Beth and Rachel.
Well, I don't know. You guys did a good job. I'm just here to help.
Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We had a nice crowd over on YouTube and a lot of conversation where people were helping people and asking questions and helping folks figure things out. Please send us your feedback. You can reach us at info@teepasnow.com. And we will be back in November. We're going to go live on Facebook. So if you'd like some information on that, you can check out our calendar on the website. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for everybody who brought questions. Thanks to the team for being present. And thank you all for caring and loving on people. Thanks for being part of our community. Thank you, everybody.